Hi all, my name is Lee, welcome back to the channel. So this is video 3 of the second prototype guitar I'm building of my own design. And with the last couple of videos was just about routing out the body, cutting the body shape, getting everything prepared there. For this video now I want to start the neck. So I don't know if you remember, but I've already sort of started on another prototype neck with the new headstock design. So it's not perfect, but it is a prototype. I'm saving the better wood for the final guitar, like the number one guitar, if you will. So the first thing to do with this, as you can see, I've already cut the headstock shape. I've cut the basic shape of the neck out. I've already put the fretboard on and I've already cut some fret slots. The reason I cut the slots first is I've found it's much easier to cut the straight line while the fretboard is still flat. As soon as I radius it, I find it much harder to get a nice clean straight line for the fret slot. So I cut the fret slots first, then I radius it, and then you still have a small line that you can follow just to get the frets to the right depth on the curved surface. So what I need to do now is I've got my neck radius jig out and ready. So I just need to stick the neck into the radius jig, get it centered, put the router on, and we'll start to cut a shape out of the neck. So let's do that now. So as you can see, I've stuck the neck into the jig. It's nicely centered. The way I center it is I just check the edge. I put the edge of the router blade straight, and then I just run the carriage up and down just to check that it goes with the line in the center. And it looks pretty good to me, so I'm pleased with that. So with that all stuck down with double-sided tape, the next thing to do is just turn the router on, and the procedure is to slowly move the carriage up and down while twisting the neck carve jig. And the way it keeps the profile is there are cams on either side, that are thinner at the headstock end and thicker at the body end, and that's what curves the shape in as you move this down. I've got a video saying how I made this jig, but let's get on and start cutting this out now. So that's the main contouring done for the neck. It looks really good at the moment, but I obviously haven't finished this yet. I still want to sand it down. It's still rough to the touch because of the router marks. But just before I go any further, I'm just using a rasp just to start profiling where the neck sort of moves into the headstock, because obviously that was a hard cut with the router. So I'm just going round, just taking the material off until it starts to blend in. So I'll do this for a while, and then I also have to do the other end as well. So that's the main carve of the neck done, as you can see. So I've just gone over it with 180 sandpaper just to smooth it all down, get rid of the router marks, and it feels really good so far. I'm not going to finish the neck just yet because obviously there's more to do. So the next job we have to do now is put a radius into the fretboard. So I'm going to use a 10-inch radius again. I'll get my radius jig out and we'll set that up, and let's do that next. Okay, so I've set up and centered the neck onto the jig. It's set at a 10-inch radius. So all that's left to do now is turn the router on, and it's the same procedure. You rock this back and forth to create the radius. So let's get on and do that now. So So the neck's looking really good now. So the neck has been carved. I've put a 10-inch radius on the fretboard. The fretboard's not finished yet, obviously. I need to remove the lines in it from the router. And to do that, I've got a radius block with a bit of sandpaper on it. But before I go and do that, what I actually want to do is I want to put the fret inlays in. So if you remember from last time, I've got a little sort of my own design, if you like. So for the first frets up to the 12th fret, the inlay I use is I actually cut out an aluminium disc with a hole in it. And then I put the fret dot, which is just a sort of a light coloured mother of pearl dot, inside that disc, just to make it slightly different, make it my own design. So the next step I need to do before I carry on with the neck is I'm actually going to cut out the aluminium hoops, 8mm with a 6mm internal diameter hole in it to put the dot in. And once I've done that, I'll be able to then drill out 8mm into the neck for the inlays. So let's get on, jump on the lathe, and we'll start cutting down a piece of aluminium to an 8mm outer diameter and 6mm internal hole diameter. So I've made my aluminium hoops. Next thing to do is stick the dots inside them. So to do that, all I'm doing is I'm just choosing the good side, turning it over, and then just dropping the dot inside, and then just applying a little piece of super glue just to the back, just to make sure it's stuck in there correctly. So I actually need 6 of these. I've got 4 here already. But I'll make as many as I have hoops, so I'll have a couple of spare as well. Okay, so that's that job done. The next thing I need to do now, drill 8mm recesses into the neck. And then I can put those dots in, and then I can finish sanding down. So I've already made my centre marks for the inlays, and I've put a dot in them. So all that's left to do, I've already done 2, but I'll just carry on and drill out the other holes. So these are 8mm diameter. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. The next step now is to put those in and glue them in. And then after that, I need to move on to the next set of 6 inlays, but I don't use the aluminium surround for those. I just put the dots straight in, primarily because when you get to the thinner frets, the dots won't fit in there. So my design is to use the aluminium surround for the first half, and then the second half I'll just use the pearl dots on their own. So I've already started pressing in the frets, as you can see, so I'll just carry on doing this. Before I got here though, once I put the inlays in, I actually sanded the fretboard down so it's pretty much finished. And the reason that I want to do that is once these frets are in and I'm extra careful, it means I can oil it and protect it straight away. Because I always find it's much harder to try and sand and polish the fretboard once the frets are on, and because of the angle you have to polish, you start to see the lines going the wrong way, and I want to try and keep it nice and uniform and shiny. So fretboard is pretty much finished. Just going to press the frets in, and then I'll just crown the frets, make sure they're all level, and then I'll put some oil on it. So let's carry on with this now. So the neck's turned out really well. The frets are in. I've already sanded down the edges of the frets and I'm just finishing them off. I've already checked for the level of the fretboard and it's still very, very good. I've also checked the level of the frets and there's barely any adjustment I need to do. So I think the time I took making that radius correct, it's really worked wonders, because there's not much on the fret height that I need to do. I've already taken a fret rocker over it, and very few slight areas, but nothing that would ever affect the way the guitar tunes. So I'm probably not going to mess around anymore with the height of the frets. They're really good and I'm happy with where they are. So the last thing I was doing is just finishing off, just taking the last few slightly sharp edges off of the frets, and I think that will then be ready for oil. So I'll carry on and do that, and then we'll come back and we'll get this oiled. So the final thing before I oil it, I'm just going to clean up the neck with some alcohol, just to try and remove any final muck on there before I put the oil on. Okay, that's looking pretty good now. So I'm just going to put some oil on this now, and that will be the neck pretty much complete. So the neck's pretty much finished now. It's been oiled and buffed. It's looking pretty good. I'm quite pleased with how this has turned out. I do like the new headstock design, the slightly slimmer one that I've made. And also I've been double checking again, just with the level. And I think I've been incredibly lucky with these frets, because I can only find a couple of areas that are very, very slightly higher. Other than that, it's pretty much perfect straight out. So of course I can measure the actual neck itself, and looking at it, it is perfectly flat. There's no raised areas or anything. I can't see any light underneath it. And of course, if I just push this up onto the frets itself and look again, it just looks perfect. And I've done the old trick of double checking just by trying to run a piece of paper underneath them all, and it catches on every single one. And I've also moved this as well to different areas on the frets, and still it just seems perfect. So I think I got incredibly lucky with this one, which is, you know, very nice to every now and then. So I'm not going to do any more preparation on the frets. I'm going to leave it as it is, and I'm going to see how it tunes up. So I'm going to bring this video to the end. It's just one last look, just so you can see it. So it's turned out really nice. The next video I'll start assembly, so I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.